It was meant to be just another ordinary evening. My wife, Sarah, had invited me to her company's quarterly team dinner, which, for the first time, was being held at our home. Her manager had decided to swap the usual upscale restaurant for a cozier, more casual setting, and honestly, I didn't mind. We had a beautiful house with a spacious backyard and a warm dining area perfect for hosting. I wasn't exactly thrilled at the idea of spending the night with a bunch of corporate colleagues I barely knew, but I could see how much this meant to Sarah. She wanted me to meet the people she spent her weekdays with, the ones she shared her professional life with. She even said with a hopeful smile, "I'd love for them to finally see how amazing you are." How could I say no? I spent the day bussing around the house, cleaning, setting up outdoor heaters, arranging chairs around the fire pit, and prepping drinks, while Sarah took care of the catering. The atmosphere was relaxed, bathed in the warm glow of string lights hung across the backyard. Soft jazz played gently through the speakers. Wine and whiskey flowed freely, and everything seemed set for a perfect evening. Around 6:30 p.m., the first guests began to arrive. They were well-dressed, polite, and kept things mostly professional. I shook hands, exchanged smiles, and laughed at the appropriate moments, being introduced time and again as Sarah's husband. That was fine. That was who I was there to be. Then Jason showed up. He didn't knock or ring the doorbell. Instead, he swaggered right through the open patio doors like he owned the place. I'd seen him once or twice at company functions before. Jason, the slick-talking sales guy in his mid-30s with the perfectly styled hair, the expensive watch, and a personality that demanded attention. The kind of guy who dominated conversations and refused to let anyone else shine. He greeted Sarah with a side hug that lingered just a moment too long. I noticed immediately. Sarah awkwardly pulled away and introduced us once again. "You remember my husband, right? This is Andrew." Jason glanced my way with a smug half-smile and nodded. Of course, the mysterious Andrew. I kept my silence. Didn't want to stir the pot. Jason already had a whiskey in hand, and it was obvious he'd been drinking before arriving. As the night wore on, the mood grew livelier, but Jason only got louder and more obnoxious. He interrupted people mid-sentence, turned every story into one about himself, and repeatedly called Sarah the star of the team in a tone that felt far too possessive, too informal for a work event. Then came the moment that changed everything. Around 9 p.m., most of the team had gathered in the living room, drinks in hand, chatting and laughing. Jason poured himself another glass of whiskey, his fourth or fifth by my count. He was mid-conversation with a few co-workers when suddenly he looked at me from across the room, raising his voice just enough for everyone to hear. "You know, Andrew is a lucky guy," he slurred lazily, pointing in my direction. "I mean, seriously, Sarah, your wife is way too hot." The room froze. Some people chuckled nervously. Sarah stiffened, her face flushing a deep red with embarrassment. Jason wasn't done. He laughed and added, "Honestly, half the guys at work want her in their bed. Some of the girls, too." There was a deafening silence. You could hear the ice melting in glasses. My heart pounded. My ears burned. I glanced around. No one was stepping in. No manager. No colleague. Sarah looked down, mortified. Jason swayed slightly, chuckling at his own twisted joke, utterly oblivious to the line he crossed. That's when I stood up, slowly, deliberately. I walked toward him. The room seemed to part around me like the sea. Everyone watching, waiting. Jason still wore that infuriating grin, as if this was some game he was winning. I stopped right in front of him, locked eyes with him, and said quietly, "Say that again." He smirked. "Come on, man. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking." Without hesitation, I slapped him, a sharp, clean strike that cracked through the room like a whip. His drink flew from his hand, spilling across the floor. He stumbled backward, crashing into a side table and knocking over a vase. A collective gasp filled the room. Jason looked stunned, his cheek already reddening. I didn't give him a moment to recover. Grabbing his arm firmly, I guided him toward the front door. "Get the hell out of my house," I said firmly. He tried to protest. "Hey, man. Out." I snapped, louder this time. "Before I forget you're a guest and treat you like a threat. Jason staggered into the night, wordless. I turned back to the living room. Silence. I looked at Sarah. Her eyes were wide, but in them I saw something deeper than shock, something close to pride. She walked over, took my hand gently, and whispered, "Thank you." That night, everything changed. In the following days, Sarah received calls and messages from coworkers, some apologizing for Jason's behavior, others quietly thanking me. Apparently, Jason had been making inappropriate comments for months behind closed doors, but no one dared confront him. Sarah later told me that the office was still buzzing about what happened. Jason was placed on leave, HR got involved, and he publicly humiliated himself in front of his team, revealing his true colors. I didn't slap Jason to show off or prove my masculinity. I did it because there's a point when silence becomes weakness, when tolerating disrespect becomes permission. That night, I didn't just defend my wife. I defended our dignity, and I have no regrets.